scholars tend to think that there's something to this story in terms of it having happened in history. For example, who would make up a story like this? This is about Israel's origins as a people, and to say, not only to say that, we were enslaved for 400 years by the Egyptians, but that our God let that happen. This is a major shame factor. So it's hard to see this just being made up out of whole cloth.
Can I talk about
That's
that?
the criteria. That's the criterion of embarrassment. Yeah, and it's a problem. It's a problem for a lot of those of basically skeptics. 'Cause who would make a story up like this? Like, for example, like Handel in Satan's Guide to the Bible. Handel's going to say that, well, this is just a story to galvanize the people into thinking they're Israelites. Okay, so you've got a background story, an origin story, that your ancestors were tricksters, vagabonds, hapiru, bums, slaves. This is not a good look.
That's a great point. And I think that's really important because even when you look at what
it's not just that
talk
they're
about
slaves.
themselves.
It's not just that they're slaves. I mean, you've got Jacob tricking Laban. You've got Jacob tricking Esau. He's a scumbag. They're stealing idols from Laban. They're idolaters. They're hapiru. They're bums. They're loafing off the Egyptians. And then they become enslaved. This is not even. I mean, this is not even just a criteria of an embarrassment. This is a criteria of shame. Who wants this as an origin story?
That's such a good point. And I mean, it's all throughout the Bible. Like if you go to King David and how he slept with Bathsheba and he had Uriah killed. I mean, that's pretty horrible.
Yeah, this is not just a criterion of embarrassment. This is a criteria of shame.
Yeah.
Who would want this?
Because
it's not like other ancient Near Eastern people said, "Oh well, you know what? I think I'm going to one up my neighbors by making my lifestyle, my origins even more shameful. I think I'll throw in some mass murderers, like the Benjaminites. We'll throw in some serial R words. There's we're gonna add all this open up every skeleton of our past, going back 1,000 years to show how really wretched a people we are."
That's true. That's
yeah,
true.
I'm convinced.
It's like, it's funny because I look at King Cyrus and in the Cyrus cylinder, and you look at how people were writing about them, like how the kings, how they all bragged about themselves back in the.
Oh yeah, Naram Sin. Perfect example. He's descended from the gods. Egyptians did the same thing. The people were descended from the gods. Built by Khnum on the potter's wheel. They're not said to be and come from real dirtbags. But this is beyond a criterion of embarrassment.
I think that's something people should probably really think about and I think it's good that he's bringing it up in this video. He's saying
it is good. It is good he's bringing it up in this video. And as I said, Satan's Guide to the Bible has to engage that. And the way they engage it is probably in some of the most disingenuous ways possible, which is to basically insert words. Like, for example, they'll say, well, this was basically a story to galvanize the people. They're a mixed multitude of Canaanites. Well, Exodus 12:38 doesn't say of Canaanites. In fact, 12:37 says that this mixed multitude came out of Egypt. Follow them out of Egypt. So Handel has to change the wording of the text to make it read what he wants it to read. Makes it say what he wants it to say. And that's how he tries to get around this criteria of embarrassment. But I don't think it's very successful.
You and I agree. All right, so I'm going to go back to, let me just chop that channel down. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to this again.
Also, another reason why scholars think that there's something historical going on here is because of the names. There are Egyptian echoes in the book of Exodus, and one of those has to do with names. So, for example, Moses is not a Hebrew name; it's an Egyptian name. We see that with, some of the pharaohs have this name Moses at the end, like King Tutmoses. Moses means born of. So Tutmoses means this pharaoh is born of the god Tut. So, for
There's no
Moses
god
to have
Toot.
that name, it seems like
What did you say?
There's no god Toot. What's he talking about? Tutmosis is the Greek form of the Egyptian Jehuti Mosa. Okay? Jehuti is the god Thoth. There's no god Toot. Okay? He's showing his expertise here.
Yep.
Real expert in Egypt.
That's so funny. All right, here we go.
there's something really Egyptian going on there. So you've got some reasons for thinking that
Okay,
there
pause
is
this.
something.
All right. Now he's going to. This is this core of reasons. Okay, why some scholars say that there might be something to this. Okay, but he sort of underplays the basis for this. It's not just the criteria of embarrassment, and it's not just names, and he means personal names here. Okay. He's totally ignores the whole raft of other Egyptianisms in the Book of Exodus. Now, we've already talked about local place names and knowledge of local geography. We didn't touch on the fact that some of this local geography is off the beaten path. It's not on the major highways. You have to know, it's in the hinterlands, like Pihahi Road, Bas Safan. It's not on a major highway. You have to go off the highways to get there, because they're in those towns that are south of the Plusiak estuary, whereas the highway ran north of that. Okay? So you have to have a good knowledge of that area to know those places exist. The other thing is, though, he also skips past loan words. Okay, we can talk about those things such as sesh for linen, itaru for Nile, etc. But there's other things as well. Mineralogical terms like mafkat, turquoise. There's also the fact we find customs, Egyptian customs in the Book of Exodus, like the birth customs in the Book of Genesis, birthing bricks, and the pair of midwives. Basically, a pregnant woman has to stand on two birthing bricks to give her elevation. One midwife would have a pair of clappers, and she'd clap the clappers to keep in time and have the rhythm for the baby to give birth and keep the mother breathing in sync. Clap, 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 clap. The other midwife caught the baby. That was an important function, too.
Oh, I pity those poor women. Holy cow. I can't even imagine giving birth without the painkillers that they give us today. Wow.
So the fact that midwives come in pairs, that's Egyptian. Again, because of the use of the clappers. The birthing bricks mentioned in the text. Joseph Wagner III did a really nice paper on some birthing bricks that was found in the Middle Kingdom too. They're beautifully decorated. Have the images of the Egyptian god Bes on it, and Taweret, the hippo god of fertility and pregnancy. But these were decorated in faience. They were meant to be comfortable to stand on, and these were birthing bricks. Okay, the mortuary practices found in the Pentateuch. The fact that Jacob was mummified. Well, they didn't do that in Canaan. That's an Egyptian thing. And the fact that they got the days counts right. 40 days to mummify, 30 days for mourning. The Egyptians would basically pile natron on a corpse, clean the corpse, pile natron on it for 40 days, and then wrap it up, followed by 30 days of mourning. That's accurate. Even some of the stuff like baking practices, like when they put the bread bowls on their shoulder garments. These are Egyptian bread bowls. They're not your typical, Asiatic bread bowl, which is low and flat. These are tall cylinders. And we even have pictures of scribes carrying scrolls, tall cylindrical items, on their shoulders in a shawl. We find one of these images at Medina Habu. And not only just that, it's also some of the prejudices. The fact the Egyptians hate shepherds. That's a prejudice that goes all the way back to the First Intermediate Period. Egyptians despised shepherds. So, there's a whole, and then that then we get into like the furniture design of, say, the Ark of the Covenant, which is essentially a Egyptian design pattern, which is wood covered in gold and metal foils. Yeah. So this is you're muted.
I just want to show your book really quickly for people who've joined us, because your expertise, in case people don't know, is on Egyptology. You've written a book called The Ark of the Covenant in its Egyptian Context, an Illustrated Journey. You've got some beautiful pictures in here that you've taken yourself, some really great things. So you guys are going to want to pick up this book if you haven't yet, and make sure that you read it, because that's his expertise and you can learn a lot.
So there's a lot here that Enns is excluding. It's not just names. So he sort of strawmans the case here. I mean, if it was just, say, a criterion of embarrassment and just the names, personal names, yeah, okay, I'd admit that this would be a pretty weak case. I'd admit that fully. But there's a lot more here. And Enns doesn't do that justice.